Hello everyone, the purpose of this Excel module is to discuss the data validation functionality in Excel. In the process, we will create a dynamic form that is simple and straightforward for any CFMer or a contract executive to use to view a resource's potential profitability characteristics. The data validation functionality can be found within the data tool subset of the data group on your Excel toolbar. The purpose of the data validation functionality is to limit the values that the user of the Excel file can enter in a specific cell. This can be very useful when delivering a dynamic analysis to a contract executive where you want to ensure that the user only enters prescribed values which allow the rest of the file to function properly. If the user tries to enter values other than those prescribed, Excel will automatically deliver an error message that the value you entered is not valid. We will spend most of our time today in the settings section of the screen. The validation criteria's default value is to allow any value to each Excel cell. This provides the user with the ability to input text, numbers, dates, times, etc. In this module, we will primarily discuss restricting cells values by list. This allows us to set a predefined group of values that the user can choose from. We will also discuss limiting cells values to a range of defined decimal values. Due to time constraints, we will not be reviewing any additional validation criteria, but please note that you can also restrict cells based on date ranges and text length. Okay, let's get to the example. Our tools will be a sanitized named resource report, a simple T&M rate card, and a set of contract-specific cost-plus fixed fee rep rates. On the Data Validation Example tab, we would like to restrict the values that the user can enter to just the personnel numbers that can be found in the named resource report. While in cell B3, click Data Validation. In the Settings group, choose List instead of any value. Excel requires a source for this list. This is where you will provide a range of cells for the user to choose from. In this case, with the cursor in the source formula, go to the Sanitized Named Resource Report tab and select all the available personnel numbers. The cell's values are now limited to existing personnel numbers. By default, Excel has also provided a drop-down arrow and scroll bar listing the values they can choose from. It is very important to note that unlike the sort function in Excel, this data validation functionality does not automatically organize the available values or remove duplicates. The user will literally be scrolling through the list exactly as it is found in Excel. In this cell, I'll type in a personnel number. Now that we have populated an existing personnel number, the results have started to pile in by way of if and VLOOKUP formulas. If you're unfamiliar with any of these formulas, please review other Excel modules. Moving to cell C3, we would like to restrict this value to the potential billing mechanisms for this resource. Somewhere in the file, we will need to create a list of these billing mechanisms for the user to choose from. I have provided these 3 billing types in cells H2 through H4. You can easily restrict the cell by clicking Data Validation and selecting these cells as the source of the list. We will select cost plus fixed fee percentage. Note that when selecting a value in cell C3, the input header in cell D2 changes by way of an if formula. If cost plus, the user will need to input the portfolio the resource is working in. If time and materials, the user will need to input the rate card category of the individual. Now, based on this information, we need to provide a dynamic list of all the potential possibilities. If cell C3 equals cost plus, we will want to create a portfolio list. if cell C3 is T&M, we will need to list all of the potential rate card categories that the user could choose from. We can accomplish this by creating a whole list of if formulas that change with inputs in cell C3. Please review the formulas provided in cells I2 through I4. Once again, we will limit the user's entries for D3 by clicking Data Validation and selecting the I2 through I4 range as the source data for our list. We will select Public Safety. Quickly now in cell E3 for outsourcing contracts, we will also need the user to let Excel know if it should use the unloaded cost rate or the loaded cost rate for profit calculating purposes. As we did with the billing mechanism, I have created a short list in cells J2 and J3 of the possible values. We will want to restrict cell E3 to these two values by clicking Data Validation and using the J2 through J3 range as the source data for our list. We will select Borrowed. Finally, we will need to input what the standard load is for this resource. As loads vary significantly, it is probably the best if this information comes from CFM, but we might want to avoid careless typos that estimate load values greater than 100%. To limit a cell's value by a specific range, we can click Data Validation and enter decimal. Excel now provides us with an opportunity to provide minimum and maximum for this value. In this example, we will restrict the values to those between 0 and 1. Note that with this selection, there will be no drop-down of available values for the user to choose from. I'll type in 35%. Now our user can successfully choose criteria that will result in accurate profit expectations. The profit value will not populate if some of the criteria is incomplete, but as long as the user enters a value into all of the input cells, we have ensured that the expected hourly profit dollar will be accurate. Please review the formulas in the results section of this Excel sheet and let the Excel team know if you have any questions or find any errors in these calculations.